The pride and joy of that fight song that it just brings to me every time I hear it. I just wish it would translate to everybody else. It is the Salute to Troy Bet Online podcast for another not so victory Sunday. And if you want to know about the emotions here that we have a very ecstatic Jamal Magman Magby. We have a very neutral because he represents all the LAFB. So we have a very neutral Ryan Dyrud, and we have a very, very somber Alro. Good morning, guys. It is what it is. I'm embarrassed. I'm wearing all black today with sunglasses because yesterday I witnessed a death of a program, and I'm in funeral attire. I just don't know what to say. All I can say is this: Jamal, you are right. You were 100% right. And one thing I can't do is admit when somebody is right. UCLA put pressure on Caleb Williams yesterday, and Caleb was it was separation from the receivers. Receivers weren't able to get open. One thing that Deanton Lynn does very well is he has multiple hats on the ball at all times. And the USC's receivers were not ready for that. They're used to being wide open when they have their guy beat, but they were looking ahead of him. They saw another blue jersey ahead of them because they thought the guy had the guy beat. And you saw a lot of gator arms. You saw a lot of just not effort. That was the worst performance that I've ever seen by a USC football team. There was no effort. And I thought they would play with effort. But there was no effort. There was no understanding of how important this game is to USC. But the other team did. The other team came out with effort. The other team knew how important this game was, right? It was so bad that they disrespected USC at the end of the game. And Jamal, what did I text you? They're lucky I'm not the head coach because UCLA will never, ever score another point again as long as I'm the head coach in this rivalry. Never, ever. That was so disrespectful. And I'm not saying it as a sportsmanship thing. UCLA should have done it. But I'm saying it as a pride thing. I'm saying it as having just courage for your school. They were waving the flag on the Coliseum field. If that would have happened when I would have played, we would have ran back down the tunnel and snatched the flag. It would have been an all-out fight. But they just accepted it. They ran off the field with the victory bell, as they should. I just want to let you guys know, this is the second death of a program that I have witnessed. I've watched Long Beach Poly die in the hands of Antonio Pierce. I am now watching USC football die in the hands of Lincoln Riley. And I was warned. I was warned by Jamal. I was warned by Sooner fans. I was warned by Candace. Don't get too high on Lincoln Riley. And I didn't listen. I at this point, I'm just lost for words now. I'll pass it to you guys. Jamal, Ryan, you guys go ahead. What are your thoughts from yesterday? And then we'll jump into these questions. You guys just let it all out. This is a legit soak session. Let it all out. You guys go ahead.
Yeah, Fred. I mean, I think you said it best. There's nothing really more to say in terms of conviction than what you had to say. I think the word that I would describe to sort of illustrate the whole game yesterday was apathy. And if I were to describe kind of the game itself, it was the UCLA Bruins played a bunch of players in USC Trojan jerseys. That's the way I describe it. It wasn't the UCLA Bruins versus the USC Trojans. It was the Bruins versus a bunch of guys who played in Trojan jerseys. And Fred, you saw the apathy from the get-go. I mean, you saw the apathy from senior day, the run out in senior day tunnels, and just the way guys were running out, and the way the fans were applauding, and the way Caleb ran out on the field, and the way the fans responded to him. And from the opening kickoff, I mean, the first drive, Austin Jones gets stuffed on 4th and 1. The next drive is the fumble. a drive later is the interception. I mean, it was 14-0 right out of the chute, and they just didn't play with any heart whatsoever. I mean, it was so funny because the Caleb Williams deep ball to Brenden Rice on the USC kind of side of the field, everybody sort of gasped when Caleb first threw that ball. They were just like, "What are you doing?" And it just sort of remarkably, Brenden Rice kind of came down with the ball, and everyone sort of erupted in celebration there. And then after that, it was sort of more of the same. There was never a moment where you thought this team actually cared. They cared about the program, cared about what it means to be a USC Trojan, cared about each other, cared about Lincoln Riley, cared about the former players, such the greats such as yourself that have come through that tunnel. They just didn't care at all. They just didn't care at all. I mean, and frankly, you saw Caleb play very apathetically. I think the UCLA Bruins defense, as I mentioned to you, Fred, it's an elite defense, and they sort of showed that yesterday. But there were also moments. There were spots on the field. Caleb didn't scramble. He was protecting, his body for the NFL. You could see it. It was obvious. He wasn't gonna kind of die for a first down or try and sort of inspire a victory here. He was just gonna run around and protect his body. And if it was there, it was there. If it wasn't, it wasn't. He ran off the tunnel as quickly as he could. I think he shook a few guys' hands because there was so much heat in the press about his behavior post game. And then he chose not to speak to the media. And then you have Lincoln Riley up there and talking about all this stuff of, we're 3-4 plays away from being undefeated. I mean, it's just there's a combination here of apathy and delusion right now in this program, where this is an absolutely ground floor job. And in talking to fans of both sides yesterday, I thought the USC fans were extremely honest and were extremely passionate, as they should be, in terms of their level of disappointment in both Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley for not being better ambassadors of what it means to be a USC Trojan. And quite frankly, Caleb Williams has done some remarkable things here. I'm ready for him to move on. He doesn't want to be here. We don't want him here. Move on, dude. Don't even play the bowl game. Get ready to be in the NFL. Make your multi-millions. Be a superstar. Wish you all the best. We don't really want you here. Leave. Get the hell out of here. And with Lincoln Riley, I think at this point, you need to have a situation where this is now year 3. You're going into year 3. All the great coaches, produce great results in year 3. So now he's run out of rope. He's run out of excuses. He's run out of analogies. He's run out of spin. He's going to have to deliver something very significant in year 3 because the reality of the situation, Fred, is he's 7-7 in his last 14 games. He's a 500 coach in his last 14 games. So this thing is going to have to turn around. I'm reminded of the game 2 years ago, when DTR kind of went crazy in that game, and it felt like sort of SC program kind of hit rock bottom. And at this time, 2 years ago, the very next day, Fred, if you recall, the very next day, the report came out that Lincoln Riley was going to be the new coach. And there was so much excitement even after that game to sort of turn the page. Let's see what happens with the defensive coordinator selection. But we're back again to being ground floor here. And this is a full-on rebuilding job. And, there was no passion on this sideline. You saw one team with an embattled coach who was basically one punch from getting fired. And they rallied around him, Fred. They played for him. Their quarterback at the end of the game said this was all for Chip. They literally made a circle around him after the game and then took the flag and went to the fans. It was guys who were passionate about each other, passionate about their coach, passionate about what their university represents. The other guys just kind of ran off the field. Mason Cobb didn't even run on senior day. He didn't even run out the tunnel. I don't know if that means he's coming back or he just doesn't even care that much. But you've got a bunch of hired guns. You have a bunch of mercenaries in this program. There's zero culture. There's zero vision. There's zero mission. There's a coach who basically just wants to call plays and recruit quarterbacks and wide receivers and has never built an organization from the ground floor. And so you just have a collective bunch of very, very talented individuals who are wearing a jersey, who have no idea about the history of what it means to be a USC Trojan. And this is what you get. Culture matters. Values matter. Integrity matters. Honesty matters. Character matters. My dad said it after the game. You can't buy courage. You can't buy heart. You can't buy will. You can buy a lot of things. You can buy scheme. You can buy, recruits now, but you can't buy those 3 things. And Lincoln Riley's going to have to figure out how to get those things without just buying them.
Yep. Go ahead, Ryan.
Oh, I don't got much more to add. Just in terms of football, bullied in the trenches yet again. And, defensively, UCLA, we know how, incredible defensive performance. It was really fun to watch them just play defense in reality. Like, they just are all over the football. Supreme tackling. I mean, we saw it on USC side, missed tackles yet again, guys put in blenders. UCLA, you didn't see that. I mean, they're just sound defensively, which is weird to say considering what UCLA was even just last year at defense. So impressive, the turnaround that they had and having the correct players in that system do the correct thing. And 3 rushing yards for USC. I mean, you're not going to win many games with 3 rushing yards. Still somehow outgained UCLA. Some of that was in garbage time at the end of the game, but somehow had more yards. But 3 of those more yards only came on the ground. And obviously there were some sacks in there that reversed that. So, but they just got beat up in the trenches on both sides. I mean, even on the offensive side or USC's defense, UCLA does not have a good offensive line. That's been like one of their weaknesses all season long. Quarterback play an offensive line, and yet USC could get no pressure. And they ran a lot of just 3-man, dropping 8, and then they still found the weak spots in the zone. So, I mean, if you drop 8 and you still have guys wide open, which they did many times, it's you're not stopping anybody, let alone an offense that can't do anything. And yet they put up 38 points. So, or I guess 31 and then a scoop and score. So the trenches is where it starts. They're going to have to learn to get better in the trenches, recruit in the trenches. And then, yeah, everything you guys said about just culturally what needs to change, but it was a performance to forget, and one that will need a lot of fixing. They need to announce Jim Leonard as DC in about an hour. That's the only hope for the fan base to have some happiness going into the offseason.
Or Ron English. I'll take Ron English.
There you go.
Ryan, you said it really well. I mean, I think it was Fred. It was the same recipe over and over again. You know, can you get pressure with 4, drop 7? UCLA brought pressure with 3, and it felt like 5 guys were coming to the quarterback. I mean, it was that they dropped 8. They won every time in short yardage, right? 4th and 1, 4th and 2. UCLA 4th and 1, 4th and they won every short yardage play. And then Garbers was just solid. And so the 3 things that it takes to beat USC yet again was the case here. And you're talking about a UCLA team that came in scoring 17 points in their last 2 games, scoring 45 points in their last 3 games combined. Okay. 45 points combined in their last 3 games. And they walk out of here with 38. And, SC just gave them the game. I mean, when you look at, there was the 1 scoop and score, the 1 field goal where TJ Harden had that big 58-yard run. But you look at the other 3 touchdowns, and then obviously that first drive of the 3rd quarter that I think really swung it when it was 14-10 and that 3rd and goal. That was the 1 drive. But the other 3 touchdowns, Fred, all short fields. It was all because of the fumbles, getting stopped on your own side of the field. UCLA only had to go 35 yards for a touchdown, only had to go 40 yards for a touchdown. And so it was just a lot of empty yards. And when it mattered the most, even in that red zone, a couple of times at the end of that first half in that red zone, there was no space. They tried a bunch of bubble screens, got blown up. Caleb got blown up with sacks. They just got absolutely owned in the trenches. And there were moments where you were watching this game where, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7 for UCLA. Logan Loya, I mean, no one is within 12 yards of Logan Loya on a 3rd and 7, and they just sort of pop it over to him in the slot. And, easy as can be to move the chains for the first down. So it was just a team that's completely confused, completely baffled, and frankly quit. They quit yesterday. Let's not sugarcoat it. I mean, a team that's still a top 10 offensive team with the best player in college football the last 2 years, the most talented running back USC has had in the last 15 years, and evidently an offensive genius, essentially put up 13 points in this game. The last USC touchdown was a garbage touchdown on their end. I mean, how does that happen at home in a rivalry game? And just the lack of preparation and the lack of spirit. I mean, such a black eye for Lincoln Riley today. This speaks. What did we talk about pregame, Fred? We said this was going to be a culture game because both teams were sort of mid in the conference, really struggling. This was going to come down to culture, and USC has no culture.
Yeah. So let's address the most important question to the network. First, Jeff, it's the Victory Bell, not Liberty Bell. Liberty Bell's in Philadelphia. We did do the Victory Bell podcast, but we had some technical difficulties. We were at Jamal's house, and we were in the LAFB lounge, and we had a great time. Unfortunately, we had some technical difficulties with sound, and it did not come out correctly. So there you go. There it is right there.
Proof.
Jeff, the technical difficulties, sort of put the hex on this thing. So, we tried.
So we were there. We're in the lounge and we talked. We had a really good conversation. I wish we were able to get that on radio and able to get people to do that, but that was a really good conversation. So, with that being said, we did do that, and that's not why they lost. I could tell you why they lost, but I want to get to you guys' questions. Just the lack of culture, and we talk about this all the time, man. It's just crazy how things. We could keep it like that, Ryan. I like that layout. We can keep that layout if you want. Yeah. So let's get into these questions, man. Let's start from the top.
Yeah, you got it now.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. You want to do it?
No.
Okay.
You got it.
Uninspired for both of the rivalry games, literally saved their worst performances for both Notre Dame and UCLA. So disappointed in this team, especially Lincoln Riley, who had no response all season. Yeah, so Lincoln Riley said in his press conference yesterday that, this is motivation for him and he's ready to go. And thanks, Ryan LBC, all season for all your support and always coming in on Sunday and leaving comments. And thanks for being interactive. I appreciate you guys for that. He said this is the most motivation he's had and all this and all that. I just want to let you guys know. And from the coaching side, you get a player who's always giving you an excuse, and you get a player who's always doing the same thing and say, oh, coach, I'm going to fix it. Coach, I'm going to fix it. At this point, I don't believe a word that Lincoln Riley says. I just don't. I don't believe a word that he says. Actions speak louder than words, and he has not done anything all season to try to change what he is showing us. I don't know what he's saying in meetings and those type of things, but what we see on Saturday is, like we always say, a lack of culture, a lack of respect for the game, a lack of respect for USC. You're at a prestigious university, right? If I'm an alumni and you're like, oh, what team did you play on? Oh, I played on that 2023 team. Nah, I'm not giving you a job. You don't respect the culture of USC. There's more to USC than just football. And I don't think any of these dudes respect what USC really is. And it shows, right? And so I don't believe anything that Lincoln Riley says right now. And just what they put on the field, Notre Dame was just better than them. But yesterday, what they did yesterday, it's like they just didn't care. It was another game to them, and it's not another game. When UCLA comes, even if you go to the Rose Bowl or if they come to the Coliseum, it's never another game, right? There's a lot to play for. And Jamal's mentioned this. Ken has mentioned this. The culture of the game is being lost, and Lincoln Riley is taking it away. It's time to recruit at home. It's time to recruit SoCal kids so these kids understand the game. I grew up a USC fan. I was able to see the torch from my porch. When I first walked down the peristyle, down those stairs in the middle of the field, that was the most amazing feeling I've ever had in my life because I understood, right? 12:30. Everybody was complaining about the game being at 12:30. To me, it was a great thing. I'm like, the game was always at 12:30, right? I played at 12:30. Like, it meant so much for USC and UCLA at 12:30. And we lost that. And Lincoln is taking that away. And it hurts so bad that Lincoln is taking it away. I've seen this with Long Beach Poly. And everybody's so happy about Antonio Pierce and this and that. And that's another conversation for another day. I just want to let you guys know Long Beach Poly is dead because of Antonio Pierce. Arizona State is 2-7 because he's the one that committed all those violations. Antonio Pierce. I've seen a guy kill a program. I've seen a guy killed a respected coach in Herm Edwards. And now I'm watching another guy kill a program that I'm a part of. And I just don't want to see it again. I don't know what we could do. All I do know is Lincoln better change or he's going to see that check on the field, just like John James did. We could write that check too. So don't think he's in the clear. We could write that check too. Even if we have to. And I know what you're going to say, Jamal, a lot of money. We'll go to China and get the money. We'll go overseas and get the money. If we got to write that check, we will write that check. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean, Fred, I think, you totally agree with you here. And, it's just shocking to me that you have a year where, you lose by 28 to Notre Dame and you lose by 18 to UCLA. I mean, they went 7-5. I mean, what did USC pay for this year? Let's just sort of break this down. 7-5. They didn't beat a ranked team the whole year. They could have, I mean, the 50 people could have coached USC this year to go to 7-5. I mean, it was a complete waste of money this year. And then he has sort of the nerve and the cheek to say, you know, we're a couple of plays from being undefeated. Well, guess what? You're 2 plays from not even being bowl eligible. If Arizona goes for 2 in the first overtime and Cal converts their 2-point conversion, this is 5-7. You presumably go 5-7. You don't make a bowl game with the best player in college football, and you're the offensive genius. I mean, what are we really talking about here? I mean, just the lack of respect for the rivalry yesterday was disgusting. The fans were disgusted with him, and he needs to get back. I completely agree with you. You have to recruit back in the trenches, and you have to go back and recruit California. But the question is, does he understand Southern California? Can he relate to Southern California? He's not from Southern California. He doesn't know anything about Southern California. And so can he even do that is the big question. And he thinks he can just kind of come in here and flash sort of the guys that won the Heisman, and everyone's just going to kind of run over and come to him. And it just I just can't believe the things that are coming out of his mouth after this game and saying, I'm so motivated. Dude, if you weren't motivated before, you got $100 million and you're playing for one of the blue bloods in college football and you need extra motivation. What is wrong with you? You know, there's one thing, Fred, and you're talking about kind of culture and organization. There's one person that is the most dangerous person in any organization. And that is the person that is irresponsibly optimistic. It's the person that's always, yeah, guys, it's going to be great. Yeah, guys, it's going to be okay. Yeah, guys, let's be optimistic. Because that's the person that doesn't see the blind spots in his or her organization. That's the person that doesn't have a healthy respect for the threats and the weaknesses of their organization. They're just a bunch of glorified rah-rah guys. And the problem right now that I'm seeing with Lincoln Riley is this sort of spin that, hey, we were just a couple of plays. We're really close. And I got to turn this program around. And I'm the one who's kind of turning this program around. He doesn't even show an understanding of the history of USC. He thinks he's got to be like this savior. He doesn't understand. Dude, the guy before you, he got run out of town in Clay Helton. That guy won 21 games in 2 years. That guy won a Pac-12 championship. That guy won a Rose Bowl. That guy went to a Cotton Bowl. Okay, he just couldn't keep it up. And so this is not a program that's just sort of hungry for you to do whatever you can to come back. So it's just absolutely frustrating when you hear Lincoln Riley talk like that, completely delusional and completely irresponsible with his optimism. And I saw a couple of other comments. He's got to start with the trenches. He's got to start with strength and conditioning. He's got to start with defensive coordinator. But he's got to build an overall culture. I mean, what made Pete so successful, Fred, and you know this better than anyone, he built a program based on a vision, and he had pillars, strategic pillars, and he said, I got to build a culture, and I got to build core values. I got to build core values of competitiveness and, you know, playing your best when your best is required and really kind of being set up for success. Where is that with Lincoln Riley? There's none of that. And so he's just ready to kind of call plays and let's recruit more guys. And I want to address the Jim Leonhard thing. Jim Leonhard is not the answer to USC. And whoever thinks Jim Leonhard is going to magically turn USC around has absolutely no idea about college football or about USC. Because I'm going to give you an example. Justin Wilcox was the defensive coordinator of Wisconsin in 2016. Justin Wilcox led Wisconsin to a top 10 defense and an 11-3 record, along with Paul Chryst. They won a New Year's Six game that year. And then he went to Cal, and it's been an absolute slog and a struggle. So look, the Big Ten is a different style of game. It's in the trenches. It's more in the box. It's a much more conventional game. It's much easier to play defense today in the Big Ten than it is in the Pac-12. And it is on these West Coast teams. So even as USC goes to the Big Ten, just kind of getting Jim Leonhard all of a sudden magically is not the answer. I really dislike this narrative that they're one defensive coordinator away from all their problems going away. This is more than just one hire. This is sort of a bottoms-up cultural situation. You can hire the best. It doesn't matter if they are not collectively bought in to what this program is trying to do.
Yeah, so Guy, and I want to thank Guy too. Guy's been here since week one. Guy, so the defensive coordinator hire is important. But the most important thing, and I've said this before, it's time to blow up the staff. Like the DC hire just isn't the issue. It's time to get rid of the staff. Like, and I said this before. I went to a NFL, NCAA, like coaches retreat type thing in Tampa Bay, Florida a while ago. And Dave Weinstead came and talked, and he said, guys who hire their friends end up fired. Guys who don't hire their friends end up having a bunch of success. And the reason why he explained is what you just said, Jamal. If I hire my friend, right? If I hire my friend won't cover my blind spots. He's a yes man. Yeah. We're here. You're good. We're doing it. Yeah. Hey, you know what I mean? If I hire somebody, right? And you can hire your friends. And I'll give this example. And I'll use you as an example, Jamal. Like, we're friends. I consider us to be friends. Like,
Absolutely.
We've grown a great relationship. If I was to hire you on my staff and I did something that did not make sense, you will legit come into my office and tell me, Alfred, that's fucked up. We got to fix that. You know what I mean? Like we have to fix that. Like, it's not right. We can't move forward doing this. If you don't have that on your staff, you don't have success. We understand the head coach has the last say, but he has to be able to have his blind spots covered. And if you don't cover your blind spots, you're not a true friend. And that's in reality, right? Everybody I know, if I was to have a staff and I was to hire staff right now, like we joke about the SCD coordinator thing, but legit, if I got the SCD coordinator job, I know everybody I hire on my staff right now will legit tell me in the meeting, not even wait to get in the office, say, bro, you're fucked up, bro. Like, you're wrong. Like, we can't do that, right? And we'll have heated arguments, and we'll fix the arguments, and then we'll go to lunch, and everything will stay the same. Those are my friends. Those are people who want me to succeed. People who are there like, yep, Lincoln, you're right. Let's just roll with it, are not Lincoln's friends, and they don't want Lincoln to succeed. They only care about their success. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And you know, Fred, the one thing I'll say is, I want to, Jeff, thanks for being so engaged, and I'll always appreciate the support. You know, he sort of, Jeff asked the question earlier, so what's the answer? And the answer, Jeff, is pick the individuals that want to be there. Don't just pick the biggest names. That's the answer. Pick the guys that actually want to be at USC, that believe in what USC is doing and trying to do, and really understands what it means to be a USC Trojan in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of their place in West Coast football, in terms of their place in the overall landscape of college football. And whether that's the biggest name or whether that's the smallest name, forget about the name. It's about the game. And pick the guys that want to be there, that are hungry, that are scrappy, that will learn, and that will continue to sort of grow with you. Don't just pick the biggest names. The problem with USC right now is they're just in love with picking the biggest names. Yeah. And that's the detriment right now. Yeah. Because you got a guy in Caleb Williams who is the biggest name in college football. And I've said it, Fred, for the last 2 months with that first Arizona State game, where I said, I don't like his body language. I don't know what's going on with him, but he just feels very apathetic. Biggest name in college football is totally apathetic about USC, does not care about USC. Caleb Williams is going to come back one more time to USC to see his jersey retired next year, and then we're not going to see him for a long, long time, okay? So that's what Caleb Williams has used USC as a transaction. Get away from the players and the coaches that are using USC as a transaction, and go to the players and the coaches that want to see USC as a destination. That's where I would begin if I was Lincoln Riley, regardless of how much glitz and glamour is around their name.
Brian Bertrand, thanks. You've been here all year, too. I appreciate you. Also, recruit SoCal kids. Come on, man. Let's address that. It's the elephant in the room. Lincoln Riley can't recruit elite local kids. They don't want to come. Ryan, you're more in depth into SC recruiting. That has changed a little bit, though, right? Or no?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm in depth. Yeah, that's the plan this year.
You know more. You know more than we know. I'm not really deep on recruiting. Like, you know more than we know as far as that. So,
well, I mean, we'll see. That's what it's the next month. That's going to be the most important thing until December 20th. I mean, they're 19th or 18th ranked right now, and I think they have 6 SoCal kids. I mean, they've got to strengthen that number, and a lot of recruits were there last night. I think one guy, did he commit last night or something? But anyway, that's going to be the big thing they have to do, and Lincoln Riley has to do.
All right, so this also, I will tell you on a surface level, that this is changing. Trust me, this is changing. We know some information that we can't really get in depth to, but on a surface level, this is changing, right? I could say that, Ryan, like for as far as the paper play with the Neil stuff and our collectives, like there's a plan to change this. On a surface level, I could say that, right, Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, you did, so yeah.
Yeah. I can redact it. So
Yeah.
it's the media. I redact it, so I can redact it. But on the surface level, this is going to change. So we're going to see that. I love our Sooner fans. As a longtime Sooner fan, I feel for USC fans. That 49-0 beatdown to OU got last year in a shootout sucked. Venables and the team culture got back this year. Riley gave it to USC 100%. So I mean, we know it's a culture issue. I will say this, man. Like, next year's a big challenge, right? Next year's a big challenge because we consider, right? We've given the title to Lincoln Riley and Cliff Kingsbury as the quarterback whispers, right? As of right now, we know that Caleb Williams is gone. That was his last game in the Coliseum. We know Caleb Williams is gone. Next up is either Miller Moss or Malachi Nelson, right? Right?
Yep.
That is a big challenge because Miller Moss is not a Caleb Williams. I'm not taking talent away from Miller Moss. He's just a different style of quarterback from Caleb Williams. Malachi Nelson, I don't think is quite ready yet, but the talent is there. Is he going to develop a quarterback and get him good, or is he going to jump in the portal? Now, the reason why I ask that question is if he goes and jumps in the portal, the culture has not changed and Lincoln Riley's a liar. If he develops those two quarterbacks who's been at SC since day one, that means he's now understanding the culture and he is trying to implement the culture at USC, and that means he has been telling us the truth. That's my opinion on that. I know, Jamal, you have something to say about this, so go ahead. I see the wheels grinding, so go ahead.
No, I mean, it's one of those things where, look, the MO with Lincoln Riley has always been transfer portal, right? I mean, when you go back, Baker Mayfield was a transfer from Texas Tech, and this is before the transfer rules were so friendly. Kyler Murray was a transfer from Texas A&M. Jalen Hurts was a transfer from Alabama. So he's always kind of gone to the transfer portal. And I have a hard time believing he's not going to at least look at that and explore that. Now, there's a couple of questions here. A, is that the right thing to do for culture? B, what does that actually do to Malachi Nelson? Because if he goes in and gets another quarterback, Malachi already used up his red shirt this year. At some point, he's going to want to play. Does Malachi Nelson transfer out of USC if somebody else comes into USC potentially? Or does Malachi want to play and compete? And C, the radical thing here, Fred, if you really want to build culture next year, start Miller Moss. He's the guy that wants to be at USC. He's the guy who bleeds USC. He's waited his turn. He's kind of the Garber's version of UCLA. And wouldn't that be the greatest culture statement to start him, build kind of an offense around his strengths and weaknesses? He's certainly not Caleb Williams. He's probably not 50% of Caleb Williams. But it's the year that you need culture more than ever. Because here's the thing. You're now leaving the friendly confines of the West Coast and the Pac-12 and going to the Big Ten. This is why this is so challenging, because all of these narratives now go away. The narratives of all these kids grew up and wanted to play for USC but couldn't. So then they ended up playing it in Arizona State or a Washington State or an Oregon State. All that stuff goes away now when you're in the Big Ten, because those Midwest kids grew up dreaming about playing for Ohio State and Michigan, not USC. So you are already got a shaky foundation with your culture, and now you're taking that shaky foundation to an environment that's completely new where you had to kind of redefine and retweak your culture anyway. So you got to be able to pick guys that truly know what the kind of home roots of this program really are. And no one exemplifies that more than Miller Moss, in my opinion. And so the things that you're taking away in terms of his skills on the field for one season, I would suggest at this particular point in time are outweighed by the things that he can potentially give you culturally, not just next year, but long term when you're actually building a program. Because if Lincoln Riley wants to start Miller Moss, what that says is he's playing the long game. He's here to stay, and he's playing the long game. He's heard, he's listened, he's gotten the feedback, he's willing to change, and he wants to play the long game. If he comes in and just picks another transfer quarterback on kind of this 1 year, 2 year kind of rental cycle basis, it shows that he's always going to be 1 year or 2 years from making a jump to the NFL, and he really has no interest in building roots at USC.
One correction is Malachi Nelson still has his red shirt. He didn't play 4 games, so you get 4 games.
So he
still
used his red shirt, right?
No, he didn't play 4 games.
Yeah, this year was his red shirt. So
this
next
year was his red shirt.
Right.
He'll be a red
I
shirt
get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
I mean, he burned his red shirt, right? So he's going to want to play next year at some point.
I get what you're saying. I apologize. So Jeff Rodriguez says, Coach, let's not be too extreme. This isn't the depth of a program. So, Jeff, let me tell you something. What I saw last night and what I saw this season, I see a lot of culture leaving SC. Like, and I'm gonna refer back to Jamal. Jamal tells us this all the time. This is not the USC that we're used to. This is not the USC of late. This is not the USC with Matt and Reggie. This isn't even the USC with John David Booty and Mark Sanchez, right? This is a whole different USC. And the thing that keeps USC, and the most important thing, and we've been talking about it all day, is the culture and the pride of the program. Like when you wear cardinal and gold, it means something to you, even as a student, as a fan, and as a player in the athletic department. And that culture is not there anymore. We are watching what it means to be a USC Trojan slowly dwindle away. Is it too late? I'm not saying it's too late, but our program is slowly dying. Like we talked about it on Thursday on the show. They want, and I mentioned this, like if you want us to be the Penn State of the West, that's fine. But they legit want the rivalry in the Big Ten to be, and this is coming from a Big Ten official. They want the rivalry in the Big Ten to be Penn State and USC. So the USC of the West thing, I was pretty spot on. Like I saw,
yes, you were.
I was pretty spot on, right? They want us to be the Penn State of the West. And that's just, I mean, that's fine, right? If we're going to be the Penn State of the West, that's fine because that means we'll just lose to Ohio State and Michigan all the time, and we'll never make the national championship, and we won't be in the playoff, but we will have a competitive team, and we'll have 10, 11 wins, and we'll win our bowl game. But that's not what we're used to. We're used to national championship or bust, right? There's programs like UCLA who aren't national championship or bust. It's competitive. If we win 10 games, that's a great season. And that's not a knock on UCLA. I'm just saying the difference between the two programs, right? USC for football is national championship or bust. UCLA for football is, hey, let's have a very competitive season, put a great product on the field, let's win some football games. If you go over to basketball for the two schools, for basketball, UCLA is national championship or bust, right? For USC is put a great product on the court. Let's be competitive. If we make the tournament and we make a good deep run in the tournament, so be it. We don't have to win the national championship. That is the difference, and that is not there right now. And the more that leaves and the more you lose that, the more the program dies. So I'm not being extreme. I am telling you what I'm seeing from a cultural standpoint, and this program is slowly dying. And I don't want to see that program die. Ryan doesn't want to see that program die. Jamal doesn't want to see the program die. Like, it is slowly dying. And it legit, and it emotionally hurts me. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I wish I hit that $1 billion lottery so I could just walk in there and fix it. Like, I could say, this is what you guys need to do, and I know what I'm talking about. But Jen, a lot is on you. I'm about to fire Candace up. Jen, you got a lot to do. You got a lot to do.
Fred, and to sort of your earlier point, I mean, it's been 15 years since USC's truly been elite. I mean, go back and look. Since the start of the 2009 season, USC has not finished a full season with less than 3 losses. You know, there was the 1-10-2 year where it was sanctions, couldn't play the bowl game, and then the COVID year. Every other full season was 3 losses or more. And so when we're talking about 15 years, look, we're coming up here. This January is going to be, Fred, the 18th anniversary of Texas USC. The 18th anniversary. What does that tell you? That all the recruits that we're talking about, Ryan's talking about, an 18th ranked class and 6 guys in California and all of that stuff, those guys weren't born when that Texas USC game took place. So the Matts and the Reggies and even the Pete era now is 1 generation ago. You know, when we talk about like the baby boomers and the millennials, and the Gen Zers and now the Gen Alphas, right? You sort of define it by different generations. Everything that USC talks about in terms of their success on the field was one generation ago. So the things that we remember so clearly, all of us, these kids don't forget. Remember, they weren't even born. I mean, their connection to Reggie Bush is he's an incredible player, probably the greatest player in the history of college football, but they're watching his clips on YouTube. Fred, we were at the games. I mean, you were on the field. I was at the games. I mean, and so it's a completely different mindset. So you can only live on the past for so long. And when we're talking, Fred, about, the USC and Penn State thing, it's so meaningful that the Big Ten doesn't think of USC as the same status as Michigan and Ohio State. Those are their two crown jewels, and they don't want anything messing that up. And they said, look, our third school, Penn State, doesn't have a rival, and we want it to be Penn State USC. That's why Penn State and USC are playing for the next 5 years. And when you look at the numbers, Fred, you just look at the numbers, the last 15 years since the start of the 2009 season, guess what? USC is the Penn State of the West. And frankly, USC has to do a little bit better to be the Penn State of the West. I mean, when you're talking about one Big Ten championship, one Pac-12 championship, one Rose Bowl apiece, and Penn State has 2 more New Year's Six wins than USC does in that period. So this is really, we're at the ground floor here, where the history no longer has the same relevance. Reggie Bush wasn't just there 4 or 5 years ago. It was 15 and 20 years ago now. And now you have to kind of get those USC guys back into this program, either as coaches or as administration within the athletic department, to really rebuild that culture. Because what it means, because right now this is a program that has lost its identity. They don't know who they are anymore, because the guys that are there in charge right now never were there in the glory years, and so don't understand what it can be. And so you have a tremendous disconnect.
So let me ask you this question, and I'll ask the fans this question too. This will be our last topic, and then we can wrap it up. This is the question I want to ask you. So I've never seen O.J. Simpson play. I've never seen Michael Garrett play. I was a baby when Marcus Allen and I wasn't alive for Anthony Davis, right? I've never seen those guys like play in person. You know what I mean? I've never seen them play. But I knew what they were. I understood everything about them. And I understood like what those Heisman Trophies winners meant to USC. Same with Mark Carrier. Same with Junior Seau. Same with Willie McGinnis. I understood who they were, even though I've never seen them play. I didn't have to personally see them play, but I knew about them, like R.J. Soward, right? Curtis Conway. Those types of people, like I've seen R.J. Soward and Curtis Conway play. I was young, but like the people who were like way before me, like I've never seen them personally play, but I understood the culture and I understood how important they were to USC, and I understood what they did for SC, and I understood that foundation. When we were there, when I was there playing, even when you were there, Jamal, when we were there, we understood the past foundation and what it meant, right? Pete Carroll came and saved USC because we were in a downfall. But he also used that past history. He went out to John McKay house, I think, either John McKay or John Robertson, one of them, out in the desert, and they explained the Trojan history. Like, we get it. Why is that not a thing for young kids today? You know what I mean? I even have the issue with my youngest brother. I went to Long Beach Poly. Long Beach Poly has the same history as USC does for high school, per se. You know what I mean? But like, they're always like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, nobody cares about when you play. Like, why is that a thing now? Like, where is the disconnect between generations to where they don't appreciate what the guys in the past have done for us? Because like,
making us all look old, Al.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, and Keyshawn Johnson, you're right, Brian. I apologize. Keyshawn Johnson, like, I appreciate what like Herschel Dennis and Winston Justice and Herman O'Ching done for Long Beach Poly to get me what I got at Long Beach Poly. I appreciate what all those guys did at USC to get me what I got at USC. Why don't these guys appreciate the past of a historic program and the foundation of USC? You know what I mean? Like, where's the disconnect with these generations? I don't, that's the part I don't understand.
Yeah, it's a fair point, Fred. And I don't want to sound like, I don't want to sound like my dad and my uncles, where it's like, the conversation that I used to get of, kind of the good old days, and you guys don't get it. But we sort of live in a very unique world. And I think let's just look at it from the confines of college football, right? It's name, image, and likeness now. It's transfer portal. You get immediate access to the next school. So when you put those things together, what are you conveying? Is that you don't have to be resilient. You don't have to compete. If you don't like the coach, or you don't like the stadium, or some fan was rude to you, or you don't like your teammates, or someone's just better than you can just transfer and go somewhere else. And so there's that instant gratification. There's that need for immediacy. And when you look at kind of social media and all the things that we have in our world, on-demand food, on-demand movies and shows, everything is instant gratification. And now when you have access to go do something else without really any cost of time or money, then you're going to sort of always be living not just sort of in the present, but in the future. What could I be doing? What could I be doing? And there's a lot of anxiety around that. And when you have to struggle and when you have to stay, you build an appreciation for the place that you've come from. And so I think that's just the sad reality of where we are right now in college football. It's the professionalization of college football, right? I mean, how many pro players know the history of the teams that they're in? Like, the guy who's going to get drafted in the first round, the Steelers, how many of these guys know like the Steel Curtain? Or how many of the guys that are going to get drafted by the Niners are going to know the Niners of the 80s? It's a very similar phenomenon. It was the one thing that college was so special, because all the fans that went to the school and all the players had that common bond with each other, and they could kind of share that history. And so that's kind of gone away now with the professionalization of college football, and everyone has to adjust, not just USC, but I think USC is feeling it more acutely. And I think the other piece, Fred, at a more tactical level is I think it was really sad how it ended with Pete, because when you look at Pete came in 02, 01, and then 02, he had it rolling, and kind of the dynasty started. SC's previous national championship before that was 78. Okay, and then so the 80s and 90s were some Rose Bowl years and all of that, but SC never quite got the national championship level in the 80s and 90s. But Pete still kind of had that tie to John Robinson, to John McKay, because it was only a 20-year period. The challenge now that a Lincoln Riley has is it's not like he can go call up Pete, because Pete has kind of distanced himself from USC after everything that happened with the sanctions and the scandal and all of that. He's made a very conscious choice to kind of distance himself. So who is Lincoln Riley now supposed to go to talk about this history, right? Because if you go one step before Pete, that was back in the 70s and 80s now. And unfortunately, John McKay, John Robinson, they're not with us. And so where does he go? That's also the challenge, right? Is that you've gone 15 years from being elite, but in a lot of ways, when it comes to culture building, you're 40 years from being elite. Because if the run in the dynasty in the 2000s doesn't want to engage or can't engage, what are you supposed to do about that? And so there's a deeper challenge and a deeper problem here.
What do you think about that, Ryan? You have anything? It's just confusing to me. I don't understand it.
I mean, there's no, I don't think, right answer. You got to ask the kids, right? But one thing I would think is, when we were growing up, and man, this is just going to make us all look so old, get off my lawn, yell at the clouds kind of thing. But when we were growing up, you guys here, I was in Denver, but when you woke up on Saturdays, right, it was, you watched USC football or UCLA football. When I woke up on Saturdays, it was Colorado football. That was like my option. It was the local channel, unless you were one of those guys that had something different, but there wasn't cell phones. There wasn't all this. Now you wake up and you can watch any game you want. You're on social media, seeing all the clips. You're seeing locker room footage. So I think you just have so much access to so many different programs. You're like, oh, wow, look at how cool Oregon's uniforms look. Oh, wow, look at how cool it looks down at whatever different school. Whereas back in the day, it was like, I only know SC because that's all I see on TV. I don't have access to anything else. Every now and then, or when you get to the bowl games, that's the first time maybe you even see another team play, because all you get is the local game on your channel, or if you go to the stadium. So I think it's just, in today's technology, you get access to so much more. So it's kind of like going to the buffet. You have so many more options now. You didn't just have to go to the restaurant and order one thing and you're just used to that. So that's what you want. You have the buffet of options. And so kids are now having all these options. So SC as a program, and we've talked about this before, and it starts with Lincoln Riley, obviously, but it goes all the way through the program, is what do they do to have their offering, want those kids to be back and choose them on the buffet line and not just look at all the other options they can choose.
Yeah, that is a good point, because I'll tell you what, when I first met Marcus Allen, like I'm used to seeing, and this is just a story, we can wrap it up after this story. When I first met Marcus Allen, like I'm used to seeing him on TV. I didn't know Marcus Allen was like 6'2", right? I didn't know he was that big. I just knew he was Marcus Allen. I knew what Marcus Allen was. I knew what he was with the Raiders and with the Chiefs. Like, I knew Marcus Allen. I knew he came from SC, and I knew he was a San Diego product and all this stuff and everything. When I first met Marcus Allen, it was like, oh my God, you're Marcus Allen. You know what I mean? It's like, you're not just anybody. Like, you're Marcus Allen. Like, a pleasure to meet you. Same thing with Ronnie Lott. When I met Ronnie Lott, believe it or not, I couldn't even speak. I was just like, how's it going? And he was like, yeah. And he's asking me, going like, because it's Ronnie Lott. You know what I mean? And like, I think that's where it's missing. Like, and I get what you're saying, like all the technology, but me as a player, I want to break Ronnie Lott's record. I want to break Marcus Allen record. If I'm at Oklahoma State, I want to break Barry Sanders' record. Whatever school I'm at, I want to break that record. So you have to figure out who that person is to try to break the school record and understand what they meant to the university. So that's where I'm a little lost, but it's crazy. In the comments, they're talking about Southern California high schools. I just want to let you guys know that CIF completely messed that whole thing up with their transfer rules. So that's why everybody's in the Trinity League and nobody goes to public school anymore. So that comments will get all fired up about that one. But neither here nor there. Like,
shame.
Neither here nor there.
Shame.
It's just, we got to keep pushing forward. So a lot of things, I'm just going to wrap this up. A lot of things need to happen. The defense coordinator hire matters. And like Jamal said, Jamal, I'm still what you said, our window is closing. Right now is the opportunity to do it. We need to blow up the staff. There needs to be a lot of changes in staff, mainly with the strength and conditioning coach and the offensive line coach and the defensive line coach. I know all you guys love Nua or whatever, but they're just not good enough. We need to change recruiting. We need to get bigger in recruiting. That fast defense doesn't work anymore. Like, we need to go back to just big, fast guys that make it work. So, and the most important thing is culture, right? Culture is the most important thing in any program that you have. Even if I'm at Kansas State, even if I'm at James Madison, even if I'm at a Division II, culture matters. You're creating something that's great, and you've created people that want to play with you. You saw UCLA's culture. Everybody's talking about the players didn't like Chip. The players proved that wrong. Instantly, they was like, we love Chip. Don't get rid of Chip. Like, we want Chip to stay. So the dysfunction that media reporter brought out must have been a dysfunction of something else. Now people are kind of looking at it like, wait, hold on now. And there was a report that came out that said, well, Chip isn't going anywhere. I don't know where this came from, which I agree with, but that's neither here nor there. But like, they're not running through a wall. And Candace says this all the time. They're not running through a wall for Lincoln Riley. I would run through a wall for Pete. I was a wedge buster on the kickoff, and back then they had offensive linemen back on the wedge. I was running through that wedge for Pete. Nobody's going to run through a wedge with offensive linemen for Lincoln Riley. So that's one of the things that need to fix. Is there anything else? I mean, the season wrap up, we have a bunch to talk about, but I mean, you guys got anything on that? Let's go with Ryan and we'll go Jamal, and then we could line up. Then we could wrap it up.
No, I think I'm good. Window is closed, I think. So it's more about how they reopen it and go through it. So we'll see. For me, it's going to be, it'll be an exciting kind of 2 months. See what they do.
Oh, Jamal, the window's closed in Ryan's world. Wow.
I won't argue. I mean, I think, this is going to be a critical hire. It's going to be a critical offseason. And it's unfortunate that USC doesn't have any momentum going into the Big Ten. So it really is kind of from a ground zero perspective to begin. And it's, starts with the new staff, the hires on defensive, who's the new defensive coordinator going to be, a new recruiting philosophy in the trenches, and then bringing back, more alumni. Let's have more than 5 alumni at the games. Yeah. I mean, it's sort of Matt and Lendale and Keyshawn and Frosty. There's more. There's more here, and bring back more alums, because if you don't have that link to those previous coaches, bring those great players back in the program to share what it means to be a USC Trojan. Ryan had talked about earlier, create potentially some special committees, create a special advisory board of football players to kind of come in from time to time to really teach, what the history and what the legacy of USC football is. So, coaching, staff, recruiting philosophy, and alumni engagement, I would say, are probably Lincoln Riley's top 3 priorities going into this offseason.
Yeah, definitely. It is what it is. We got to move on. I guess we're going to play in LA, right? It looks like the LA Bowl for us.
I mean,
LA or Sun Bowl, yeah.
I mean, but I mean, this season is over. I mean, yesterday they didn't show up, so there's no reason to believe they're going to show up for the LA Bowl.
Yeah, but I mean, we still got it. We still have to do our justice for our fans. So
Absolutely.
we probably need to set something up. We're not gonna let our fans down. We have the culture. We appreciate all of our fans. So we're gonna keep this going for you guys because we appreciate our fans. I'm gonna throw a curveball real quick. You guys, you don't have to do it now, but maybe on our Instagram or Twitter, we're gonna get into a part of the season where there's gonna be like a slowdown, like around April. What do you guys want to see? Maybe we could do some fan request shows and things like that. Even Ryan, we'll talk about it. Maybe we could have some of our dedicated fans come on the show over like when we have that day up period, just that. But USC_LAFB is the Instagram, right?
Twitter, Instagram, or just LAFB Network, all of them.
LAFB Network. So just go on there, tell us what you want to see when we get dead. At least we can get some ideas now and we keep moving forward. If we're in LA, let's set up something for LA. Guys, I appreciate you. I wish it could have been better. I'm sorry. I'll take the blame. I'll be better than Lincoln Riley. This is my fault. I did not have the team prepared. We will come prepared, and we will put our team in the best situation possible so we can go on and be where we need to be as a USC Trojan football program. I apologize, guys, by the performance of the USC Trojans, and I will never let this happen again. I will take the blame, and I will bear it on my shoulders, and we will not let this happen. You guys got anything else, or we can move on? I'll see you guys tomorrow. We still got a show to record. We got to keep going. I appreciate you, all you fans. I appreciate you guys. You guys have been great this season. We got one more. To go. We'll fight through it. We'll get through it. We'll get through all season. We'll get through recruiting. I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for subscribing. Thank you guys for doing everything. We love you guys. Keep it up. Go tell 2 friends. Tell them subscribe. You know how it is. Live free. Fight on. Appreciate you guys.